This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Synchronous? This is Steven, your host with Phantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friend Ryan on, and we're talking about The Strength of the Few by James Islington. Now, I know you haven't read it yet, so don't freak out. This is going to be no spoilers, slash, like what you should know going into book two. So we were lucky enough to get an arc. We finished the book. My booktube video with probably some similar thoughts to this discussion is up on YouTube, so you can go check that out. But like Ryan, let's start with a overall opinion on the book, how you'd compare it to book one, and then we'll kind of go from there, tie in some details that you may want to refresh yourself on in book one. And we'll keep this one shorter because we're going to record a spoiler episode right after this and then release it in November.
Yeah, sounds good. I think to give readers a sense of how I liked book two, it makes sense to let them know how I felt about book one, in
For
case
sure,
they
yeah.
haven't listened to, or listeners, I should say, in case they haven't read the first book or our first podcast. But I think I gave it like a 9 on our review episode. So I really liked The Will of the Many, and
I gave you a 9 as well. Hmm.
I was probably the one of the best books I read in 2023, if not the best book. And so it says a lot. Like with James Islington, he had his Lycanius trilogy, which I thought was a very strong debut book and series from him, and to just continue right with The Will of the Many. Needless to say, I was very excited that we got this advanced reader copy for The Strength of the Many, and
Strength of the few.
uh yeah, The Strength of the Few, mixing
Yeah,
both book
I,
titles.
I'm with you. This was also like this was the larger Fantology goal for the year. Like
Hmm.
get an arc for this book.
Right. So I think that as I've gotten older, I've done less and less like checking on authors to see like how where they're coming with the progress for their next book. But I will say this was one of the few books that I would periodically check in on, James Islington's website, just see like what news is he updated? Does he have a release date?
Hmm.
So that also I think says something about how excited I was for this book. And is it all right if I jump in and share some spoiler-free thoughts?
Yeah, I mean they need to be spoiler free because
Okay.
otherwise you're gonna make me a liar
Okay.
from what
All
I
right.
just said.
They will be spoiler-free, Stephen. They will be.
Yes.
So, my overall thoughts for Strength of the Few was that it was a strong second entry. It was not quite as strong as the first book. So I gave a 9 out of 10 for book one. I think the Strength of the Few would be around an 8 out of 10. So still very enjoyable for me, very exciting, and I'm still invested in the series and continuing James Islington's work. I think that the primary reason this book fell a little short for me was due to the fact that we switched from a single viewpoint in book one to multiple viewpoints in book two. And it led to a little bit of fragmenting of, where exactly you are focused, like where your attention as a reader is. And, I just fell in love with Vis's, what he was going through. And so pulling me away to different characters, um, for a variety of different reasons, I think my enjoyment suffered just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm similar. So in my review on YouTube, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. So, half a point more than you, but similar thoughts. And some of this stuff is a little tricky to talk around without doing spoilers because like the fact that there's multiple POVs and the story is fragmented, like really kind of lends itself to spoilers immediately, because it gets into what's happening with the plot. If you finished book one, I think it's like you're probably guessing like I don't think this should be a surprise, right? Because book one ends in a way that that pretty naturally lends itself into this type of new structure. And book two continues right from the end of book one. There's no time skip or anything. The action just continues on. I'm kind of wondering if like with us giving it a slightly lower rating, is that just our subjective view on what types of stories we like? Because Will of the Many was appealing to us, both of us. We have some similar tastes in some tropes, and like the magic school trope, the first person narrator, like overcompetent main character, like these are tropes that we both really like and kind of, you know, continue on from stuff like Name of the Wind. And there's some differences here in the second book. And I'm wondering if the dip in our rating was like, is it really because book two wasn't as strong as book one, or was it just like it didn't quite, speak to our preferred tastes quite as much?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I think that might play a small part in it, but I still stand by the fact that most of the reason why I didn't enjoy it was because of, spreading your attention. It wasn't like a single well-developed storyline that you had, your eyes on the entire time that just felt, fleshed out start to finish. It seemed, eh, like I said, it was more fragmented. And so that means in order to keep the book a reasonable length of time, you're spending a lot more time developing each point of view. And um,
Right.
I think that took away from, the time that you could move forward a single point of view. And I think that maybe if it had been a single point of view, or if it had like continued the same tropes that, we loved from the first book, which I guess the one trope that I can think that it really didn't carry on was just like the school setting, which is no
Mhm.
spoiler if you finished the first book. You know that they've essentially finished their
Yeah.
time at the academy. But I mean, were there any other tropes that didn't necessarily continue?
Yeah, I guess that was the main one. So I might have overstated previously, but yeah, without that, it changed a lot from the first book. So the first book, another difference that I noticed was it felt like the thing that really made the first book work was the entirety of the time you felt like you were going along with Viz, and like at any moment his house of cards could like tumble down and his secrets would be revealed and all would be lost, and he would be consigned to a sapper or killed, or something horrible would happen, right?
Yeah.
Like if he says the wrong thing or reacts incorrectly to something, then everyone's going to find out what's going on. I felt like we kind of went away from that a little bit into book two. Like we just kind of advanced the plot a little bit more. Obviously, there are new threats and new things are going on, but it feels like the spirit of it has changed a bit. We've matured a little bit. The plot, the place that Islington is taking this is kind of necessitating a more like fundamental change in the series, and we really see that in book two. Book two, I think, is a transitional book in many ways in terms of getting from the book one in some ways feels like kind of a story we've heard before, or at least like a type of story we've heard before. And I think by the time we get to book four, it's going to be like in a totally different space. And book two is really kind of a vehicle that's moving us in that direction.
Yeah, so it's interesting that both you and I went into this thinking that it was a trilogy, and
Yeah,
we both
I think we missed that detail somehow.
yeah, we both came to the conclusion either near or at the end of finishing book two that this is actually going to be a four book series. And so I wonder if, I wonder, like, an interesting question would be to ask, why does an author move from a trilogy to a quadrilogy, or what do you call that? A tetralogy?
Uh, yeah, tetralogy sounds good. And I don't know if there was a movement there or if we just fundamentally did not understand what the series was from the beginning.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess because a trilogy seems like just historically where a lot of fantasy and sci-fi series have
Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
So what exactly is it? Is it realizing at the outset when you're outlining, like, this story is too big to tell in three books? Or maybe there's like something more structural, because lots of trilogies suffer from, like, the sophomore slump, in a sense of like,
Mm,
or the middle book isn't quite as good because it's setting things
right.
up for the final book. So I wonder if people are trying to, maybe if you can like keep things rolling where it's more than just like the beginning, middle, and end, you kind of have like more or extended stay in the middle and can, I don't know,
Mm.
spice up those events. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think that makes some sense. And frankly, before I realized it was going to be four books, I was getting a little alarmed towards the end of the second book. Like, oh gosh, like there's still like so much story here, and we only have one more book.
Hmm.
And so I was really happy to hear that it was four books. So, thank goodness for that. That said, a lot of the things in book two, it feels like James Islington has his finger on the fast forward button quite a bit, where in book one, and maybe this is a little bit of a fundamental change. In book one, I felt like we like just kind of like sat with Viz in some of his day to day and like relished in his small victories and, bemoaned the little defeats and stuff. But in this book, it feels like for each of the three different POVs, like we're really moving through the boring stuff and pretty much just focusing on the impactful things. And I guess that's necessary when, like you said, we're splitting up into three books. We've got three times as much ground to cover and still 700 pages. So we've really got to get moving and we've got to establish new characters and settings and continue to expand the world and enormously expand the plot. Like there's so much ground to cover here. And so I think he had to do that. But at the same time, like I don't want to make that seem like that was a negative because for the story that Islington is trying to tell, I think it's the right decision. And he does a very good job of packing in like so much stuff into 700 pages. And I mean, in reviewing and putting some notes down, this is a ton of information. I think he does it really well in conveying it in a way that feels natural, feels like the story progresses really well. The pacing is probably still I think the pacing is probably still the best part of the book because it always feels like something is happening. It's very difficult to put down.
Right. And so what you said, kind of sprung a thought in my brain. My brain sprung a thought.
Yeah,
Uh,
spring it upon me. Yeah.
Sprung a thought. I don't know how to say. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but thought popped into my head. Okay, that's what I was trying to say.
Yep.
Where when you said the end of book two, you were wondering about, how is he going to finish up in just one book? So I think I had similar thoughts towards the end of Lycanius book two. And it's been a while since I've read the Lycanius trilogy, but my overall thoughts for book three was that I wasn't like the biggest fan of how certain things were tied up. Like maybe they felt a little too rushed to me, or like, I don't know, kind
Mm,
of just like tying up loose ends, like page after page, just really quickly. And maybe I wish there a little bit more time had been put into it. So
okay.
what if James Islington is like, this is a story on a similar scale, as the Lycanius trilogy. Maybe he realized that he ran out of time in three books or ran out of
Mm,
pages, And so now he's like, I'm gonna give myself a little bit of extra time, one more book to, both develop and wrap things up. And you know, just me spitballing here.
yeah, I like that. Let's mark that down as a good question to ask him,
Yeah.
because he graciously agreed to do a little chat with us. So hopefully that comes to fruition, and that would be a good question to ask if that really came
hmm
from his experience with Lacanius. Hmm.
Yeah. I'm really gonna struggle if I'm a part of that interview, just not asking him a million different questions about the book.
Uh-huh.
I'm like,
Explain.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's I guess another selling point of this book is he does a really good job of wrapping up some mysteries or at least like providing new information about some big mysteries from book one. Or like, is it accurate? I guess in some cases we're still not entirely sure, but also introducing new things. And so it really feels like there's a nice progression, like a natural progression of us along with Viz. We're kind of trying to like unravel the secrets of the world here, the worlds, right?
And I like that because sometimes we tend to harp on the negatives, and I do especially. So though we've already said we liked this book a lot. You still spend a lot of time with Viz. You spend a lot of time learning more about the hierarchy, about the world, about these mysteries that have been, set up so well by Islington in book one that you just want to know so much more about. You're spending, page after page, unraveling those mysteries with the main character, with the POV characters. Um, you see a lot of, the same characters from the first book. Maybe some more time with other friends, enemies than, other characters that I would have liked to have seen, but
Mm.
that might be more of like a preference of myself. Um, but overall, learning more about the magic system, how it works. So getting those unanswered questions answered, and then, maybe some more questions are posed along the way. Just the things that I love about epic fantasy, you're gonna find in this book.
In addition, there are some really exciting, larger set piece types of things, or just more like structural action bits that really kind of, give you a sense of like there are five chapters in a row here that I cannot put it down for like at all because stuff is just happening. In addition to that, I think there are still those like strong emotional beats. I think book one had some really nice emotional stuff, especially with Seuss towards the end. And this book has some similar vibes throughout that really kind of make you feel for the characters and give a really like strong sense of humanity into the story.
For sure, that it can pull on your heartstrings a little bit. Maybe make you tear up even. I don't
Hmm.
know. What
That a
type of
confession?
I didn't tear up, no, but it did tug on my heartstrings.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, to close this out, let's just review some things from book one, some things you may need to remember. You might want to, this is not going to be like a comprehensive list. So honestly, you're probably going to want to, if not do an entire reread, at least reread the last like reread or skim through the last like 50 pages or so, because like I said, it continues right away and there's a lot of new information that you get at the end of The Will of the Many. So, first of all, I guess before those last 50 pages, there is the Nomachia happens where Esteban comes in and slaughters everyone with this mysterious weapon, and Viz is able to stop him. And so this is an important thing to remember. It's going to continue to get developed more into book two. In addition, the other big thing is the Anguis. attack Anguis. That's how I say it, I guess.
Yeah,
Their attack
Anguis.
on the Iotacum. Is that pronunciation not the best,
The
but
Eutychium.
okay, Eutychium towards the end, and they have the support. They have support from the military faction in doing this. As part of this, a lot of Viz's classmates are killed, and this, one of them being Calidus, right? And this is just massive for Viz in a lot of ways. And then while he's out there on the Eutychium, he goes through the labyrinth and then things kind of get weird because he goes through the labyrinth and then he comes back out. And then at the very end of the book, there are these two chapters under the synchronous area. And in one of them, he's in Lucium, and in one of them, he's in Obitium. In Lucium, there's some weird stuff that happens right away. And he seems like he's in danger, that he sees scarring on his arm, or like, not scarring, but like his arm starts opening up, tells him to run. He runs out of there. This is still in the labyrinth. He touches this mysterious thing on the wall, and there's like this blinding flash of pain in his arm, and then he is like whisked away by these mysterious strangers. So, like, big mystery, hard to say even like what's happening here, but you need to at least know that because it's going to pick up from there. And then in Obitium, kind of similar, he's in the labyrinth as well, except this time it's Sayror, Kayror, old Caesar's brother. Gosh,
Sea-roar.
yeah, Siror. My
Uh, it's kind of
pronunciation
like
is gonna be rough.
Caesar, but with a roar at the end.
I like that. Okay. Siror is there, right? Siror is the guy that we've been trying to track down this, or not trying to track down, we're trying to solve his murder the whole time, but here he is alive in this mysterious place called Obitium, and this is how the book ends. So this is I think it's not too hard to kind of put the pieces together and the synchronous thing and like to get a sense of what's happening. Like if you read the first book, I think you've got a sense of, okay, this is what this means, but it's going to continue from this point. So you need to refresh on on those details.
What a great end of the book, though, with Vis just looking down at his arm, and then out of nowhere, it's just like his name is carved in, right? It's Vis, and then
Yeah.
RU, and then he just starts running.
Yeah. It's like, I
And
don't need the
then
last letter. I'm out of here.
and then the final chapter, it's he meets Sea-Roar, and Sea-Roar's like telling him like, okay, you need to carve this into your or
Yeah.
wait, no, it's isn't it wait and then run?
Yeah. Wait. And
Wait and then
yeah.
run. Yeah.
Exactly.
What? And I remember you finishing that book and just being like, what the heck is happening?
A few other minor details. So he meets up with his wolf dog, his dire wolf type of dog, the Alupai. He names it Diago after himself. And Diago has like grown a lot over a short amount of time, but he defends him throughout the Ayudakium. And let's see, he also, oh, afterwards, Amissa, his love interest, sees something weird going on with his blood after all of this and, like, regrettably tries to kill him, pushing him off the tower. It's like, why did she choose to do this? We don't get an answer in book one, but that's important to remember. And then the last little detail is towards the end in Res, he has a vision of his father, and his father speaks to him briefly and leaves him horse carving. And we're like, what is this? Is this just a vision? How did the horse get here? Right? Like, yeah, you got to remember this too. So hopefully that helps fill in some gaps. But if you're still confused, I would just go back and probably reread parts of this.
I loved my reread. I would highly recommend rereading it if you enjoyed it and you have the time.
Did
It
you
goes
reread?
fast.
Did you reread right before reading book two?
Yep. I
Okay,
immediately went it from my reread into
nice.
rereading Strength of the Few.
Okay. Yeah, I did not. I read it twice, but the second time I read was still several months ago. So I was a little fuzzy on some of these details. And like I said, like I think you'll pick it up eventually, but you may be kind of confused for a little bit if you don't refresh.
Yeah.
All right, so I give it an 8.5. Ryan gave it an 8 out of 10. I think we did a good job with no spoilers through all that. This is a tough one to talk about
Mm-hmm.
without spoilers. So yeah, I
Yep.
think we did a decent enough job. All right, so this episode's gonna drop sometime in September. I know it doesn't come out until November, but hopefully this gets you excited. Go ahead and pre-order the book and then watch for eventually our interview. Hopefully happens with James Islington. And at least we'll have a like full spoiler chat coming out shortly after the book comes out in November. But we've got to record that now, or we're gonna forget all of the details that
Mm-hmm.
happen in this book.
Yep. Well, it's fresh in our mind.
All right, so that's a wrap. If you want to check out Fantology, you can do that. The best thing to do is just join our Discord and chat with us and hop into some read-along channels. We'll be doing a book club for this book in November. So if you're a big fan, hop on, chat with us, chat with some other friends who are on the channel, and we'll even do like a audio chat and give everyone some time to discuss theories, etc. So that should be a good time. Looking forward to that in November. And I guess final word is, it's synchronous out there. Good luck. That's all I can say.
We'll see you on the other side.
All right, see you, Ryan.
Bye.